Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a crime film from the USA, English language, released in the year 2020, directed by David Ayer, and this film is called The Tax Collector. So The Tax Collector is about two men, they're best friends, and they live in the underbelly of society. They're gangsters, and one of them is a brutal individual. They're both very brutal, but one of them has a family, and so he doesn't necessarily love what he's doing, but he sees it as no other option because this is all he knows, intimidation and brutal violence. So he wants to build a better future for his family, but at the same time keep them apart from what he does as far as making a living. His best friend is nicknamed Creeper. Creeper is the complete opposite. He has no love, and he's just a complete psychopath, and he has a reputation of doing horrible things to people who get in his way. So these two men, they work as these tax collectors for the local crime lord named Wizard. Now Wizard sends these tax collectors to local gangs. Now they have a deal that these local gangs can operate in the territory, but they have to pay the tax collectors a fee that ultimately goes to Wizard. But anyone who refuses to pay a tax deals with these very scary individuals, but most of the gangs respect them because of the reputation, so they follow the rules. And so business is going along smoothly until the arrival of a Mexican drug lord. Now this Mexican is fresh out of Mexico, and he's an absolute lunatic, and he scares everyone that he comes across. So he doesn't want to pay any taxes. He wants to take on Wizard, and he wants to take over everything. And so he will destroy anyone or anything that gets in his way. And so the tax collectors have to make a decision. Do they go after this Mexican, or do they pull back, and one of these friends has to think about his family, because the further he goes down the trail of this Mexican drug lord, the more danger this family are facing. So he has to decide whether or not he wants to pull through, or in fact he wants to save his family and get out while he still can. So what he chooses is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Tax Collector. I was really disappointed with this movie. Now, David Ayer is a director that I'm not terribly familiar with. I know he made a movie called Bright, starring Will Smith, that has mixed reviews. I haven't seen that movie, but so not basing this film upon anything else. I was giving it a fresh slate. I was wondering what it was going to produce, and what it produced was a film that had moments of brilliance, but ultimately it was a very lazy film, and that's not something I was expecting from a director with this reputation. This is a film that wanted to be a masterpiece, but it wasn't willing to put in the hard yards to be that masterpiece. And I think if it was handled with a better director and a better script, it could have been an absolutely fantastic film. Now, what I will say about this movie, there are very few positives, but the biggest positive is that towards the end, this movie goes on the brink of being a full-on horror film, and horror is exactly what this world is. This is a world that you don't want to be a part of. You don't want to have it glorified, and if you get the feeling that you don't want to be a part of these people, you don't want to know these people, then it's doing its job. And the last quarter of this movie was incredibly dark, and I absolutely loved it. I loved how it started to turn dark, and when the violence happens, it really happens. This is an R18 film here in Australia, which is high impact, and the violence is incredibly hard to watch, and that's something that I really liked. There were moments that the violence was very much glorified, and it was slow motion and all that kind of stuff, but there were moments that I thought were really, really well done. It wasn't glorifying the violence, it was showing the violence as very, very ugly, and it's the type of world that you could feel that this is how it is that these people are horrible people. They have no real likable qualities, and so they're doing horrible things, and you're watching it, and you don't necessarily feel as though you want to watch any more of it. And so I really liked the last quarter of this movie and how dark it got. But unfortunately, as I said, although the movie is well made, this is a film that doesn't want to do the hard yards. Now, for a film like this to work, you need really strong characters, because you have to get a likable quality within a character that is doing horrible things. But David Ayer doesn't want to do that. Is that you have this connection with Shai LaBeouf. Now, he is in this film. He's the Creeper, which is a guy you're supposed to feel very intimidated by, and his friend, now the main character. Now, I never felt as though they were genuine friends, because we're told through flashbacks that they're very close. We know, all right, they'll do anything for each other, but I didn't feel it through their actions. I always felt as though these were people playing best friends. They weren't genuine best friends, because it is a very, very superficial film. And even the relationship with the main character and his family, I thought, once again, it was acted, because we get no depth. There's no foundation for these characters to be relatable. And when they're doing horrible things to other people and it comes back to them, why should we care? And this is why it's so hard to make a crime/drama in this world, because because if these people are doing horrible things, how are you going to make them likeable in return? And so if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So they're doing these terrible things to other people who would have families, but then when it's coming back to them, why should we care? And we don't really care because they're hollow cardboard cutouts, and I felt as though they were cannon fodder. And when people are getting tortured and all that kind of thing, I just thought to myself, well, it's no great loss because it's just a fuzzy face in the background. There's a lot of melodrama that is thrown at the end, and that again is another indication of a very, very lazy film. A movie that wanted to make you feel very sad and wanted to make you cry, tug at the heartstrings, but it can't do that because it's forcing itself. And when it's forcing itself, it's not coming naturally. Therefore, I never felt as though I connected to anybody involved. And I always felt like they were actors and actresses playing characters as opposed to real people that I could really relate to and I could really sympathise for. So I really should have felt sad for this main character, but although he's trying to protect his family, I never got the impression through his actions that he wanted to get out of this world. But right at the end, as I said, it forces itself, it's splashing itself with sad music, flashbacks. And that's supposed to compensate for the fact that you never went on this journey with these people. And so on top of that, you have some really, really cheesy moments. You've got some fairly questionable action choreography. And as I said, some slow motion sort of shootouts and blood sprays that I thought really didn't fit. It was disjointed in that regard. But the last core of this movie was absolutely fantastic. It was very, very brutal, bordering on a horror film, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to appreciate that. But a quarter of a movie is definitely not enough to make a movie watchable. And I just thought The Tax Collector, although it was fairly well made as far as visuals are concerned, apart from the fact it was a little bit dodgy here and there, the majority of the movie did have a dark atmosphere. But the characters, Shai LaBeouf playing this hardened criminal, I didn't buy it. To be honest, I wasn't intimidated by him. I just felt like it was a guy trying to be that tough guy, but it's a laughable sort of tough guy. We're told that he's tough. We're told, in flashbacks, what he can do. But if you weren't told what he's done in his past, then you wouldn't feel that intimidation. And so it's like saying, be scared of this guy because he's done this and that, but you're not really going to feel scared of him if you're not told that, if you know what I mean. It's because he doesn't have the intimidating sort of vibe. And the whole film just doesn't have the vibe of something that really is serious about making a good film. It just wants to make these shortcuts in order to get to that good movie, but ultimately it falls flat. And I thought this is an incredibly disappointing experience. So overall, for The Tax Collector, it wants to be a great film, but it's not willing to do the good work. And as far as that's concerned, I just feel as though it was unacceptable in its approach. Therefore, it comes as a disappointment and it's not coming recommended. I'm going to give The Tax Collector 1.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies and I'll see you later.